Hello, my name is Teri Churchhill, and I'm with Keeping It Personal and the Refined Community, where we are passionate about helping women grow their business so they can make an impact, but also about growing personally and in their faith. And one of the ways we do that is by featuring our members. And I'm so excited to introduce to you today Jen Hickle. Hi, Jen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. And before I have some specific questions for you, but before we dig into those, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, who you serve, personally, professionally?
Absolutely. So I'm Jen Hickle. I live in Elk River and I have 4 kids. They're 19, 17, 15, and 12. And I homeschool them and I have since the beginning. And I also own Rogers School of Music, which is in Rogers. And we have over almost 600 students taking lessons every single week. We teach piano, guitar, voice, violin, bass, drums. We're open 7 days a week. I have full-time desk staff there, 30 teachers working for me. And that is a business I've always had since before I had kids. I started teaching in my mom's living room and then went house to house with lessons, and I would hire teachers and send them to houses. And then we started sharing spaces and renting from churches. And then we rented from a ballet studio, and then we got our own space in 2011. And the business has just exploded. So out of that, I've always been at home. So I love working from home and managing the whole studio. And so now I'm a business coach and I help other service-based local businesses grow their business. And I'm a huge advocate of online marketing. So kind of a geek there with Google and Facebook and all that good stuff. And so I really help people like, how can you maximize your time with your laptop and your phone so that you can grow your business and still prioritize your family? So that's my passion. And I'm just super happy to be here in this community. It's just such a wonderful environment. And I'm just happy to be here today with you too.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. We absolutely love having you in Refine. So now I have some specific questions for you. First off, what is one thing that you've taken from your personal life that has impacted or helped you in your professional life, or vice versa? Maybe something from your professional life that has really
Sure.
impacted and affected your personal life.
Yeah, I think that's such a great question. You know, I grew up in a very musical home. My mom always taught music. They were always doing theater productions. My parents did worship in our church. And I think a lot of lessons that I learned from being a performer and a musician all growing up have really transferred to my life as a mom and a business owner. And I was thinking about this and I was thinking, you know, what did that teach me? And I think one important fact that translates to business as well is the practice that you do when no one's around matters so much when you get to the performance and the stage when people are watching, right? So that alone time, that diligence, that faithfulness, that attention to detail is in the dark, in the secret, is what actually ends up coming out when it matters. And I feel like that all that time alone in a practice room with just a piano, right, taught me those skills that I need as a business owner. And I think I loved the applause, right? As a performer, like you live for that applause and you're like, I did a good job. But almost as an adult, it's like, oh, you got to deprogram yourself. I can't wait for the applause. I have to just do it because I love it, because I am an artist, and for God, because He gave me these gifts, whether it is music or performing or business. And it's just my job to give it back and to do it for the love of the craft, not just the applause. So those are some of the things that I really translate. And also, I guess the last thing I've been thinking a lot about is when you practice music, you're trying to get it perfect, but at the same time, you know it's impossible to do it perfect, right? And so when I run a recital for little kids and they get done and they're like, oh, I messed up, and they're so upset, I'm like, hang on, time out. Perfection was never the goal. The goal is to get up there, be brave, play your song, and if you mess up, keep going. And what a powerful message that is in business, right? The goal can't be perfection. We can try, right? No, you can practice, you can do excellence, you can do your best job, but really the goal is just to keep going. So I've been really like ruminating over that a lot. And I'm like, how can I bring that into my life? Just keep going. Just keep going.
That it seems like I've seen this post over and over or in different places lately along those lines, where it says you don't fail until you quit.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
true.
what you're just describing. I mean,
Right?
if you keep going, like what a great lesson. That's actually, I heard you kind of talk about two things. One, don't quit, just keep
Right.
going, even if you mess
Right.
up.
right?
What a great lesson for life. But
Mm-hmm.
then that other part about that practice, what do you do when you're alone, when no one's watching,
Yep.
is really powerful too. Yeah, great,
Yeah.
great insight. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the next question, as you know, we gain wisdom in a lot of different ways, and usually from an experience of some kind
Yeah.
that we've had, or maybe from an experience that someone else has had and shared their wisdom. So what is a significant piece of wisdom that you've learned through experience or through someone else's experience?
Well, I think in growing my business from being a solo piano teacher to then owning a brick and mortar location and being a boss and hiring people to now even backing up again to being a business coach, I think the biggest takeaway is like nothing goes as planned. Nothing. Right? And I like to compare this to a road trip, right? Because if you're going to go on a long trip with your family, you pop that GPS address in, right? You're like, we're going to Florida. And you have you know we're going. And you have a general idea of maybe the states you're going to go through. But really, you don't know exactly where you're going until you see it on the GPS, turn by turn, make a right turn at the next intersection, right? And I feel like that's my business. Like, I'm just waiting for God to tell me the next GPS turn, right? Like, I have a general idea and I've got a fuzzy path, but I do not know until he gives me that command. And I have to hold on to that because I think naturally I'm a planner. I would love to map this all out. But you can't, and you really don't know the path that's going to unfold until you're on it. And so that's what I really cling to. And I think that's been the wisdom that I've tried to really ask from God, like, help me to listen to your voice. Help me to know the next step you want me to take. And if you need to say, rerouting, through that GPS, like, just let me know. And sometimes you even pull over and you go, you know what? We're going to change the destination.
Yeah.
And you put a new address in.
Yeah.
Right. And like you were saying before, it's not failing until you quit. But even if sometimes you do have to quit the path you're on, now you're not starting over from zero. You're starting with that experience that you bring into the next endeavor. Because sometimes we just don't know, right? Having kids change things for me. The ages of kids has changed things for me. I've had to adjust how I work, when I work. What does this look like? By the stages of my kids. It's never been like, okay, I finally got this and now we're just going to live this way for the next 10 years. No, never. It's always, always changing. And again, just tapping into that voice, I think, of God, of like, what do you want me to do? What's the next right step? What's the next right turn? That's what I've really tried to cling to.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so this isn't one of the planned questions, but maybe you can speak a little bit to this. What's a method that you use to know? Like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the next step, or this isn't the next step.
Yeah. I'm a highly intuitive person. So I have to get quiet or listen to music because it blurs out the other noise. My brain can go a million miles an hour and be thinking of 1,000 things. And so if I drive, listen to music, shut off the noise, just try to quiet. I almost feel myself zooming out a little, like get out of the details, get out of the stress, and just take a minute, go on a walk. That's a great way to process, right? And almost like, it's not like an audible voice, of course, but it's this impression and just feeling it in your gut and knowing like, I don't think this was from me, because sometimes my revelation is very opposite of what I thought we were going to do. Right? Like I thought we were on this path, and then I get quiet, I eliminate the noise, and I'm like, oh, it's very clear we're actually going to go the other way. So that for me is the biggest thing, I guess, zooming out, getting some quiet, getting some space. Again, music ministers to me, and it just like, I find it like takes up half the space in my brain so I can focus. Like it just like absorbs inside of me and allows me to let go of all the swirling thoughts and helps me think clearly. I'm sure it's different for different people. But I guess the main point though, to answer your question, is taking time to be intentional about it. Yeah. Right? Like I got to really take time to pause what I'm doing and make sure, am I on the right path? So it's like just really reanalyzing or zooming out or going on a retreat like you guys just had, like space away. Journaling helps me. Sometimes I feel like I don't know what I think until I write it down, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. And it just helps slow everything down for me to make good decisions.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I just think it's so important. And there is a theme, whatever that looks like for different people.
Yes.
It is important to somehow get quiet.
Yeah.
Music or journaling. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious what that looked like for you. But
Yeah.
anyone I ask that question of how do you hear from God, it's always some type of getting quiet, getting out of that busyness and the to-do list. So I love that. And it's been obviously powerful in your life. I mean, you have taken these next steps and things have changed and evolved. So
Yep, it's true.
Thanks for kind of veering off the track
of course.
And sharing that with us. So Jen, what is a tool or principle that you apply to your life every day that helps you thrive and grow and move forward?
I really believe in focusing on strengths. So I'm a huge proponent of strength finders and different assessments, because I really do believe God put inside of each of us a different set of strengths. And if we it's so easy to listen to trainings and everyone's like, you should do this and you should do this. But when you push that aside for a minute and go, well, how am I wired? Like, what am I good at? Then it changes everything. And it allows me to do the things I'm doing because I'm capitalizing on just how God made me, right? So even when people are like, I don't understand how you homeschool and run a company, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just time out for a minute, because you have different strengths, right? Like, you do you. This is just, I am a high capacity person, but I've modeled this just around what I'm good at. And I am good at managing a lot. And in some ways, I don't actually do a lot. I manage a lot. So I delegate a lot, right? Because I found out that's my strength. That's not everybody's strength. But we do that at the studio. Like, all my team members, I have them take strength finders. I know what they're good at. And yeah, the job has to get done, but knowing how they're wired helps me give certain projects, certain responsibilities to them based on who they are. Well, guess what? They're happier, right? They love working there. And it's easier because you can do things easier and faster when it's easy for you, right? If you're banging your head against the wall, it's going to take longer. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to drain your energy. So that's the biggest tool or principle that I use, is just really getting people to hone in on their strengths. I do that in coaching as well. So before I ever coach somebody, I have them take several assessments, and then I read them, and I read it back to people, because I think we're actually pretty blind to our own strengths, because it's like, what? It just comes naturally. What do you mean? It's just easy.
It's like, can't everyone do this?
Yeah. You really don't know. Right. And so it's kind of this light bulb switched on about 5 years ago. I went on this journey like, okay, my music school's doing well. What's next? And honestly, I was a little bored. And I hated telling people that, because they were like, excuse me? They were like, how can you be bored? But I was unfulfilled, because I had delegated so much of my music school that I wasn't being challenged or growing. So I got really serious about discovering, who am I? How am I wired? And like, what does God want to do in this next season of my life? So I'm so passionate about strengths. I just think it's such a good journey for people to go on to understand their personalities more. I love 16personalities.com. So that's the Myers-Briggs test. Highly recommend like diving into that. I'm into Enneagram. And then there's one called Kolbe that a lot of people haven't heard of, KOLBE.com. And that's how you work. So it's not personality, temperament. It's literally like, how do you function in your job? Well, if you own a business or you're growing a business, knowing that is going to help you know where to focus, how to grow this thing based on what you're naturally good at. So that's my favorite subject to talk about. I could keep going, but I'll try to taper off here.
It's a great tool. Yeah. And especially in coaching, I could see how that would be super helpful. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Well, lastly, do you have a favorite quote or a favorite verse that you could share with us, and then tell us why it's one of your favorites?
Yes. So I've always loved the quote, do what you can with what you have, where you are. And I think it probably was because I had 4 little kids. I had 4 babies in 7 years. I'm growing this business, and you see everything you could do. You see everything you should do. But instead I had to just tell myself, okay, time out, do what you can with what you have, where you are. So that meant working in nap time, working after they were in bed. It wasn't very much, but whatever I had, I used. And even the tools, like I started teaching piano lessons because my mom had a piano and I knew how to teach piano. That's all I had. I went and bought a little planner at Walgreens and checked off when they came and checked off when they gave me a check, right? Boom, a business was born. Like I didn't have a website or I had nothing, but I just did what I could with what I had. And it helped me pay for college. And I discovered I loved it. And so I've just used that principle, like what is in my toolbox right now? Because I'm very much a future-oriented person. I see all the possibilities. I see where we could go. And that's great to dream, but I have to come back to reality and say, okay, but what do I have right now? Where am I? Because I could be frustrated. My kids are still young. When they're older, I can do this. No. What can I do now? How can I love the stage they're in? How can I make the most? I mean, I used to work when they were napping. Now I work when they're still sleeping because they're teenagers, right? I can get a lot done in the morning. So it's just changing and morphing depending on the time you have, the resources you have. And it's worked really good for me. It's like the principle I keep coming back to. Like, Jen, just what do you have? What can you do right here, right now? And it's just those baby steps. And it's worked, it's led our business forward and got us to the way it's not fancy, but it's got us to where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that quote again.
Do what you can with what you have, where you are.
Where you are. Okay, good.
Yeah. Theodore Roosevelt. So the troops were at war and they were like, we need more ammunition. We're running out. And he had nothing to send them. And so this is the message he sent back. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. And wow, I think about that. Like they were in the trenches. They were desperate. They were probably hungry and cold. And so I'm like, if they can do that, then I can. Right. And it's just that it's like almost from a place of desperation. Like just do what you can with what you have, just where you are.
Yeah. Love it. It's like desperation, but also hopeful.
Yep. Absolutely. That's right. That's right. Because it's what I can do.
Yeah.
It's not focused on what I can't, but it's like, all right, what do I have?
Yeah.
And usually when we look down, we go, oh, I have more than I thought.
Right. Isn't that
right? So it's stopping that comparison of what I don't have or where I wish I was or what I wish I could do or that other person is further along than me. No, just stop. What do you have? Your strengths, your talents, your abilities, your resources, your time, whatever it is. Just let's start here.
Yeah.
And then it'll grow.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So fun to chat. I love this stuff. So it's fun to have somebody pull it out of me because it's just fun to talk about.
Good. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and you have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.